what she's talking about.
Yes.
Not anymore, actually, it is very.
Now it's good. In
The
those
road is
days,
very
it was still
good.
the
People are
road was being
so
built.
I'm just with that idea.
Yeah.
Don't get scared. It's very nice.
Yeah.
All the
So
yoga
now you
will
can
be
get
tested.
pregnant and try it.
You don't have to risk it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So who wants to come forward, talk about this? Wherever you are. Okay. 1 minute. I mean 1 minute maximum, but yes.
Can you just read that off?
You can read that off, yeah, for now. But then bring something to it, right? Don't read, but say to the effect. Let's say you are sitting like this. The slide is there. This is how you'll be presenting, right? Okay, go ahead. Who wants to? You want to come? You can talk there because we'll be doing a rapid round.
Health is a state of complete physical and social, mental and spiritual well-being, and not merely absence of any disease.
Disease.
Yeah.
You're so scared to use the word disease, as you can see. Yeah. You want to say World Health Organization has defined health this way. Yeah. Next. This is already done. Okay. Where does this fall under? Now, yogic definition. Modern definition of health, yogic definition of health. What is yogic definition of health?
When on the 5 sheets of
What is it?
our
Now you have to define health. Don't talk about Panchakosha. Don't say there are 5 layers of existence and yoga says this. We are talking about yogic definition of health.
So basically we are saying that
Don't worry about the slide. What is yogic definition of health?
when my physical body is like I feel good in my body, I don't feel any pain, and then I'm feeling balanced mentally and I'm stable in my emotions. So if it is all in alignment, then I'm in good health.
Good point. Anybody else? Very good. Yeah.
Chitta vritti virana, our mind, we have to control our mind. Through yoga practice, it will bring awareness to our mind, then I think.
No, you're off. Yogic definition of health. What is yogic definition of health?
Is that the koshas has to be, all the koshas has to be in balance?
Perfect. Okay. More. Anybody else?
It's a union of mind, body and soul.
Somebody use the word
Swastha.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. That's where, remember, we had done that cheat, that little card? Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, swastha literally means to be established in a self. So, all these layers, whether it's physical layer, mental layer, all of them are in perfect harmony with our, we can say, inner being or who we are.
That's the most to the point answer. We had that card. He was not even part of the card. So that gives me a great satisfaction because now I know that the testimony, one more testimony
Can
to
you
the.
repeat again?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
The Sanskrit word for health is swastha. Swa is self. Stha means to stand or to be stably established. To stably be established in oneself. So the body is in perfect harmony with the self. The mind is in perfect harmony with the self. The emotions are in perfect harmony with the thoughts are in perfect harmony with the self. So when there's perfect balance across all layers, whether we call it panchakoshas or multiple, there are other texts that talk about 7 layers to our existence. All of these, when they are in perfect harmony with the self, that is, in fact, that's what yoga is, uniting all these, and that's what helps.
See, that is exactly what we want. Remember we talked about in the sleep I'll be able to talk these slides. That's exactly what, those are the words. You have to repeat those exact words. And in fact, in our last week's game, we had that talk on one side it said yogic definition of health. On the other side, it said exactly this, swastha. What is the definition of swastha, what it means, and establishing harmony at all these 5, at least according to this text, 5 layers. And that's good point that he said there are some texts that talk about actually 6, some talk about 7 and so forth. Okay, We'll come to that. And then what happens? Now we are in swastha. Now what this slide is about? Swastha, opposite aswastha. When are we going to become? See, you have to take your audience through these slides. How are you going to do? You cannot, they are not independent concepts. Each slide is not something different. And when I see that people present, okay, there are 5 layers in the body. 5 layers in the body? And this is a complete, you just talked about United Nations of Health. Then you started talking about Panchakosha. How are the two connected? So you have to really connect them with the story, right? Tell them a story. So the story is swastha and now aswastha. Now we are here, we have come with some little pain. I mean, again, don't say you're all diabetes patients now and why did this happen to you? Oh, because of this stress, and then who is responsible? You are responsible. Okay, it's a little too much of a, they then say, you're blaming the victim? No, my spouse is the problem. So that kind of stuff happens. So you don't want to directly talk about the disease as if it is the worst thing that has happened to them. In fact, we want to bring that in a way that this becomes an opportunity for you to explore within yourself, that kind of approach later. But anyway, so you want to say aswastha. Yes.
So for someone who's not familiar with the concept of self, how would you define that?
Good point. Very good. You simply don't emphasize on that capital self, small self, all those things. Simply, like you said, being in harmony with yourself. And who is going to deny that? Myself doesn't even exist. Yes, there is that part too, by the way. There is this so-called boundary of me versus you, and that not having enough boundary, all those pathological, psychological conditions. We'll come to that. But for now, everybody will understand yourself, right? So this is about aswastha. So you have to lead that. So while swastha is that, and we all know that we have to exist in harmony with ourselves, but we all got into some trouble here and some pain here. And why? What is the cause of this aswastha? And if I may say so, it is stress. They won't connect immediately. What is the stress and got to do with my knee pain? Then you have to go forward, okay? Let's talk about how stress causes this. And you all know this. When does this come? In fact, that can come here. This slide can even come after this. There are multiple ways of presenting this, by the way. I arranged the slides in some order. Doesn't mean you have to do that. We are going to delve on this so many times, you will start seeing that you can do differently too. So usually I like to put this slide after this one. Why? Define what is stress first, right? This sympathetic, parasympathetic. Can somebody now, you spend 1 minute to talk about this one? Who wants to do that? You did last time already, 1 minute. Remember 1 minute game?
If it is sympathetic response,
No, what is stress? Look at the slide and what it says, what is stress? And we are the audience sitting and listening to you, and we are not understanding what you're talking. What is the slide saying?
Stress means which we are not able to take that situation, and we are not able to resist that situation. Situation is stress. Any kind of situation that is which we don't like, actually is stress.
Okay.
And there are 2 kinds of stress. There is sympathetic and parasympathetic stress.
Okay, you're off there. Okay.
So I mean, just an example, my boss gave me a hard time on one topic, right? I had a one-on-one with him. Now I don't want to go for another one-on-one because the feeling that I got after that one-on-one was not good, and I don't want to face it again. So that's
Good point, but we want you exactly covering that slide.
stress. In the type of example is traffic jam.
No, cover that slide first of all.
So there is line over there. So either you have to fight with that line or you have to just run back, run away from that line. So fight or flight, that is sympathetic.
Yeah. But then you talked. There's a line over there. It was a very passing sentence. You have to be a good storyteller. When we are talking communication here, you have to be a good storyteller. So what are you, how are you, anybody wants to take one more stab at this? Yeah.
So stress is just your body's adverse reaction to a difficult situation. So where your heart starts beating and then your body's pumping all these cortisols and so and then that creates with your raised heartbeat and all that. And
Okay.
that's not a good
Be a good storyteller. That's not a good storyteller. Like what cortisol? Too many jargons. Yeah.
So stress is a reaction. Just imagine, like you have a lion in front of you. So what you will do in that situation? So you have only two options. Either you are going to be prepared to fight with the lion, or you will just run away. So this is the kind of thing going on in that
Good
stress.
point. Good point. So you have to give that kind of a plot. There has to be a plot. And then how do you address that now? What happens to the body when now you saw a lion? What happens to the body? Anybody wants to be a good storyteller there? Yeah.
Nowadays we don't see a lion. Maybe we could say this could be a boss.
Good point. Good point there. But we really, the reason to bring this, especially in the beginning slide, is for you to first of all bring a cave reaction, right? Biological reaction of an animal that the human is at the primitive level, and what exactly happens to the body. Then you take it, next thing you do after this lion episode, because this is important. This is who we are. Evolutionarily, this is who we are. We are not prepared evolutionarily to meet a boss. Because boss is not a lion, he's not going to eat me, I don't have an existential crisis to that extent. If evolution had begun with that situation, maybe it would not have given that big of a parasympathetic response. But unfortunately, we are made to respond in a way that I'm going to die now in the hands of lion. And that's why the lion becomes important here. And then once you talk about the lion and what happens to the body, how the body, what does the body do to us? Sympathizes with us. This is the word, that's why it's sympathetic curve. So that's why storytelling is very important here. And build that story from there and then connect it to your boss. And so what happens when you meet the lion like that? The blood pressure goes up, the muscles tighten, the eyes become sharp so you can see far off and run, all like pupils dilate, and the digestion, you just have maybe you have just eaten, then now it says shut down your digestive system, shut down your motility, conserve your water because you need that water to spend now on sweating and other things which are needed. So all of these actions happen, and then you run and you go to the safe hiding. And when you go to the safe hiding, the body knows now, that mind knows, body knows that now I'm safe, and suddenly you feel tired. All this time you were not, just a second ago you were not tired. Maybe another furlong or another mile to run to safe hiding, you wouldn't mind it. But now ask your body to run 1 mile, forget it. You won't run even you won't even put the next step because you say I'm too tired. Because that's how the body reacts. Now it's in a parasympathetic dip. That is not stress. That's rest and restore, rest and digest. So that story is important. Once you say that story, this is how the body is made. Cortisols pour in and all adrenaline, everything is equipped for you to get that additional energy. But then, now comes your boss or the traffic jam. The way the body reacts to a traffic jam is as if you have seen a lion. Really? Traffic jam is lion? But that's how it is treated. And the next previous slide, which now I like to play this slide, because now you can say, hey, look, this you don't even have to talk now. People know. Okay, now I don't even do that. I do this slide and then I go into the next one, that is the body evolutionarily. Stress used to come when I meet a lion, which I don't do every day. Although it seems like that. Forest means lion and always lion. No, that's not how animals live. So, I always have this balance, sympathetic and parasympathetic. However, our modern lifestyle is like this. And that's why we never go into parasympathetic balance. And so what happens? This happens. that is, we always eternally we are in this situation, and that's why we are in stress.
Can I see
And-
that first slide?
Which one?
The modern life. One more?
This one?
Along, yeah.
Family, relationships, disagreement, money worries, need to succeed, exams, trends, decisions, new situations. Very, very straightforward. That slide, I don't know, I got it from some website. Phenomenal. Yeah. Okay, so now coming to this. This is another very important slide which you can take, you can just breeze through, or you can spend a lot of time in this. The reason we are covering this again and again and again, not so much to give you knowledge anymore. You are already, you know this, but to be able to communicate it. That knowledge has to become yours. That will only happen if you repeat. Shravana is already over, but now we are doing Manana, and eventually you will be doing this. So we'll be asking you to take turns in group and present, like how we had group practice. Similarly, we'll be doing this presentation repeatedly 3-4 times. Only then you will know how to speak it properly. And then of course, whenever you meet anybody, you have to start talking about yoga and start talking about this. The children will run away from you, it doesn't matter. You still have to talk. Okay? Now, what is this slide? You were saying there is good stress, bad stress. Somebody was talking about that. No, not last week. Yes, we talked about that. What is that? 1 minute, anybody?
This slide shows that some level of stress is good for you, in the sense that if you have to perform anywhere, even do your daily, get to class on time, or do a cooking at home and finish it by 12 o'clock, so there we meet. So that's a kind of good stress where there is a drive to do something. So you can see that the stress level is increasing and your performance is also increasing correspondingly. There's a comfort zone. That's a good stress which is productive and helping you in some way. But at the top of the, what is it called, the curve, that's the hump, and from there everything goes downwards when you do not know how to balance your stress, when you do not know how to get back from the stress to a point of relaxation. When the sympathetic is going out of control, overdrive, that's when you start. The stress starts affecting your performance, and that's why many of us, we can work hard for one day, and second day we can do lax, not sleep, and struggle to get things done. But by the end of the week, you will have a nervous breakdown, and when the stress is too much, your performance will go down. And so things like having a good sleep, relaxing during your work, that's really important to.
Very good, very good, very good. Very well said. Anybody else wants to take one more stab at this? It's a very important slide. In one more way also. I'll come to it later. Anybody else? One more stab at it?
One thing is, it also shows that when there's zero stress, that's not ideal.
Very
In
good.
other words, if we are totally in a zone of complete comfort, there's nothing to do, no responsibilities, we are not really efficient, we are not productive, we laze out.
Very good. We covered this right last time. Same point. See, not bad. Yeah. Okay. You are reinforcing my ideas. Anybody else? This is a practice session. That's why I'm calling you.
When we can use the stress or the experience of the stress in a productive way, in a problem-solving way, you feel good.
Yeah.
So actually, the higher the stress, you feel better. But it is about, I think, the higher functions controlling it, like managing the stress. How you can manage the stress.
No, don't bring higher controls. Huh?
Okay.
Don't bring psychiatry and psychology and all that. When we are basically storytelling. Anybody else wants to do this? Slow storytelling. Yeah.
Okay, so in some ways we can also say that, so suppose you start with like no stress, okay, and then you reach a point where there is a balance for you in today, for today, for me, good stress is here, right? But if there are ways or practices, if we increase, then we can be positively increasing our performance and take the positive stress to maybe a higher level.
Yeah. Very good. But then you jumped. We are not yet there. We are simply in storytelling. That is, what is good stress, what is bad stress. How to
Right.
take that curve further and all that is secondary. later. So remember we talked about the car engine also, right? There is a stress test done. Until a certain point, what is your load? How much load can you take? They do all these crash tests, this and that. Until a certain point, it's okay. After that, it breaks down. Same thing. We all have a certain level until which we can perform well, and after that, that fatigue and exhaustion, all that happens. So that is, if good stress is, she talked about drive. That which gives us the drive to do well. If we talked about seniors, right? Get up, everything is fine, and children are taking care of them, and they get up and do nothing, and everything is there, right? But they are not happy at all. So no stress is also not good. No stress is actually sometimes stressful, because boredom is stressful. So good stress is needed for everybody. That's the idea. So yeah.
Small comment. So just like we have the word distress, I've heard one more word for good stress, which is called eustress.
Yeah, we have done that. Eustress and de-stress. We have put that. This slide doesn't say it, but we have made cards for this, and we play games. We give this one slide title, eustress and de-stress, and then they have to talk. So this will continue. Okay. Now, how much time do I have? Okay, so I have to start moving on. Now, you know all of these things. We talked about it multiple times. So I'm just going to go over the next few and move to psychotherapy versus yoga therapy. So this is all fine, right? And then we know this, we covered this. There is one story for this too, slow poisoning. Frog in the well, frog in the hot water.
Hot water.
Yeah, that experiment. Bring that story and explain this. That is, if the frog is sitting in the cold water, he's fine, and then you increase the temperature slowly. If you put the frog in the hot water, he'll jump out and he'll save himself. But then if he's sitting in the cold water and slowly the temperature rises, the frog will die eventually sitting there. So that's who we are. We are all frogs slowly with the temperature rising, right? Stress building up.
But
That's the slow.
I have a question. So isn't that aging, I mean, whether you do anything or not do, that will happen eventually, right?
Yeah, that will happen eventually. We are not really denying that, but we are addressing the crowd which is aging faster than they are supposed to age. Correct? There is again a gradient. Remember, we talked about health being a gradient. What is aging also is a interesting discussion. Which is it always 100 years? That's our mark, benchmark for now, which is okay. We'll deal with that parameters, right? 100 years, at 90 I develop diabetes versus at 30 I develop diabetes. What's happening here? That's what we are addressing. Okay, next. Oh, here's the next one. So, we did this. What's one thing that we talked about? Stress is a response. Kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum, samartha. This is Adi Shankaracharya's word. This is our mantra, and we have to keep repeating this. Remember that game we played. And then, what does yoga do? Yoga helps you move up the curve also, right? The stress test. Remember that curve that we had, the hump? Seema, you were talking about that. After talking about what yoga does, how yoga helps, later you want to bring this and say, with this, our comfort zone was here, we could keep pushing the comfort zone up and up and up. That is the benefit of yoga. So yoga is yogaha karmasu kaushalam. So bring that. When you bring yogaha karmasu kaushalam, then you can bring this. That is, the comfort zone keeps going up. Why? Because now you have mastered the art of doing the work without getting tired. What makes us tired? Is it the physical work? it's the baggage that we carry, right? Oh, I have to finish this work. Oh, I have to finish this work. Oh, I have to finish this work is a big thing that goes on. The amount of work that we have to do. We are not in the present moment. We are constantly switching the context, and we are sitting and doing this here, and suddenly, oh no, I haven't done that. This kind of constant mind racing from one thought to the other will reduce. It doesn't mean you are doing less work. You are really doing more work in a more efficiently, more efficiently the amount of work. So you will have complete control over your mind, where this context switching happens per your volitional control, not automatically. Oh, I forgot this, right? You set the interrupt and you say, hey, for next 1 hour I'm finishing this work. Next 1 hour you do nothing but finish that work, and whatever you had said as, okay, I'll do this after this, that thought will come only at that point. This is a art that we have to slowly learn, and it comes, it happens. It's a matter of time, consistent practice. That's when this comfort zone can be moved up. Okay, that's only about mind, but there's also body, and there's also a lot that lot of other disciplines that you would have inculcated. Yes, please.
It's a genuine question. I'm not trying to play
Sure.
devil's advocate.
Yeah.
So when we push the comfort zone to the right, have we fundamentally solved the problem? Because I've heard once, for example, oh, I wish I had 26 hours a day. And then the teacher said, oh, soon you will require 28.
Right.
In other words, just by pushing it, we might get overwhelmed with the new situation.
Very good
And
question, isn't it? What are we doing? Is that what we are doing? That is, are we doing 26 hours of work in 24 hours? Or are we doing, let's say, 8-hour work day? Are we doing 10 hours now instead of 8 hours because we have more energy? That's not what we are doing. Everybody has 24 hours, and we know that everybody has 24 hours. What we are actually doing is simply being more productive for the given time. And if we added more hours to it simply because we can, I don't know what is the point here. Let's say, I just want to talk about my own experience. That's the best way to explain this. I used to need 8 hours of sleep, for sure. 8.5 hours of sleep, like the doctors say. 8.5, don't forget the other half, 30 minutes. Last 8 years of yoga practice and not working at Oracle, and not yet, now if I go to Oracle, let's come to that also. So last 8 years of practice, now I can sleep for 6.5 hours of sleep, and I'm okay. It's not, oh, you feel okay but your sleep backlog continues, all these things. They say, no, that's not what is happening to me. I'm just fine. So that means I have that much extra time with me to work. And not work meaning, of course I'm doing my yoga, of course I do spend my time on all that I have to do to take care of my body, but I overall have more time, right? And not only that, I'm sitting and doing the work on, let's say, preparing the slides for tomorrow and whatnot. I would have taken much longer, I would have taken much, and I would have gotten up and had a couple of cups of tea because I'm feeling so stressed out. There is also, I have to sit down and do this much work. All these things used to happen to me and to all of us, right? Doesn't happen. There is work, there is me, there is things to be done. Never the thought of, oh my God, I'm feeling so overwhelmed, never comes. Now, this is just me in only 8 years, not even long, much long and ardent practice, and not even that I'm constantly sitting and doing my yoga and meditation. Where is meditation? Please give me some time so I can meditate, is what I have to say. So, just the contemplation, just that negative thought when it comes, oh wait, why are you doing this? That kind of a simple contemplation also, right? Just brings somebody like me here. Imagine somebody who has put in much more effort, much more, commitment, I would say, to the mindfulness practices. I'm sure they can do so much better. So that is what we are saying. We are not saying you have more time now, go find a mountain to move. Then you are in trouble. So you are not going to become ambitious with this. Then that is not at all yoga karmasu kaushalam. You have a goal, dheya, as we say, dheya, which means what is that you want to achieve in life. That stays, your path stays, and you are not rushing to the path. You are simply being efficient in the path, and your next step is just next step. Nobody can read 100 pages at a time. Every one of us has to read one line at a time, one page at a time. So how can some people finish the book faster than the others? Everybody is sitting and reading. If I'll give the book to you, any one novel to you, I'm pretty sure some finish at least half the time compared to others. What exactly changed? What is the difference then? Brain is the same. Let's tell you, there's no such thing as Swami Vivekananda says, oh, this is not about somebody is more intelligent and less intelligent. No, it's the ability to concentrate, focus on the task given. That's all there is. So when we say yoga karmasu kaushalam, that's what we mean by that. When we say you can go, your comfort zone is now up there, it's just the same car. When you put much more stress, much more load, much more, crash test, it is taking more. That's all. It's not now going, okay, let me now crash at a bigger speed, because now I know I can go faster. I'll go until I crash. That's not the concept.
I would like to add one point. So basically what we are saying, I think, is we are reducing the rate of reducing the baggage as we progress. That helps us become more efficient in that moment. So I think that's what
it's just
all of us.
kaushalam.
Yeah.
That's it, kaushalam, skill. We are only improving the skill. We are not adding more load to it for the sake of adding more load to it. Okay? Just the ability to do more happens on its own.
So somebody can ask this question, that just coming to your yoga class, how I will achieve that approach or the understanding that I have to be more efficient.
Yeah, this is how you answer. This is exactly how you answer. Being in the moment solves that problem, but we all, even though I want to be in the moment, I want to follow all these things, is it possible in one day? Why is it not possible? We don't have the mental strength to follow that. Nobody wants, if I say close your eyes, don't think of monkey. It's easy to say think of a monkey. It's very easy to say solve this problem. If I say clear your mind and sit without any thoughts, it's a practice. Sadhana. And it's possible. Got it, right?
There's one other important point is whenever there is a stimulus, with yoga you get the ability to provide a measured response as compared to a reaction. And whenever there is a reaction, typically it is out of balance, so you're probably putting out a lot more than the situation requires. And that way you end up spending more energy and hence becoming overall less productive over the length of the day, because with each response, it is not a response, it's a reaction. So each one is more than you need, more than you need, more than you need. By the end of the day, way before the end of the day, you're already exhausted. Whereas when you are providing not controlled, but measured response to each situation, taking a few moments to think what I should do, then typically you have a lot more to give during the day as well.
Excellent. Your ability to control the mind at every moment is enormous. That's what we call mental strength.
So the reaction time takes longer.
Reaction time doesn't take longer. It just simply, you just barf, right? You have a situation, you just don't give the space.
Through yoga, when you come through it, the reaction that you would otherwise have, it would take longer for you to just go react. You would think about it maybe for a split second before react.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Before responding.
Sorry.
There's a subtle difference between reacting and responding.
Right word.
Yeah.
Reacting does not take any time.
Yeah.
You will react once you got the stimulus, you react.
Response is the right
Response.
word. Yeah. Okay.
Response.
In fact, this in one of the previous slides, you said stress is a response to event.
Yeah.
So maybe we should say it's a reaction to, I don't know.
It's a response.
And
Stress is
demanding situation.
No, in this case, stress, there's a subtle difference between, like they said, stress is good stress and bad stress. Stress is not bad. You should feel the stress if there is a situation that requires it. And that is could be a response. But if you react, like for example, the example that I use is in nature, you will always see a response rather than a reaction. Like say, go to a pond that is nice and stable, you throw a little stone in it,
Yeah.
and a little wave goes up. You take a bigger stone and throw it, bigger wave goes up. We're not saying big stone, small wave. We are not suggesting that. It has to be a measured response. It has to be, in balance with the stress, in balance with the stimulation.
Perfect answer. Very, very good answer. Lovely. So stress, what it tries to say is, stress is in the response that you give. Response or reaction, whatever. It's the response, not the situation itself.
Yeah.
So there is a stimulus and there is a response.
Correct.
Stimulus is not stress. Response is stress. That's the kind of way I use the word response. There's stimulus and response. We think stimulus is the stress. There can be traffic jam is a stimulus. Is traffic jam stressful? That depends on how you respond to that. That's what we mean by that. Okay, I have to move on here because we are not going to stop here. We are going to repeat these slides again and again. The only quick part in 10 minutes I want to finish is this. This is the reason to do this today is because we are going to have Savita, right, coming in. 11:30 she'll come. So we'll just quickly finish in 8 minutes. I'll just take 8 minutes. Okay, yoga therapy versus psychotherapy. There's going to be psychology session is going to come up. So I'm just going to, again, very small introduction, but this will be continuing. Okay, there will be more of these. Now, just a little contrast. We'll not discuss too much today because we will discuss in the next session, because then by then you would have seen introduction to psychology also to some extent. So just to bring a perspective, this entire thing is coming from the book Yoga and Psychotherapy by Swami Rama and two of his disciples, Dr. Ballantyne, who is a psychiatrist, and Swami Rama's disciple, and one other guy, PhD. They have written this beautiful book. So basically what they say, disease, according to the modern, ancient, all the holistic systems, disease is caused by, we'll share these slides by the way, disease is caused by toxins. That is ama in Ayurveda term. Body itself is polluted by its own metabolic waste, chemicals and any other toxins that come in. Whereas modern medical system, when it began at least, the whole focus was external. That is, there is outside agent that is causing something wrong in me. That was the focus with which it began at least. Now, understanding is much more, that's a different story. But the reason why this comparison has been done is because the way in which the thought process also goes out. The psychology of modern medicine versus the psychology of the holistic systems is still quite the same. Okay, and yoga and Ayurveda, that's why focus on well-being. That is Shat Karma and Panchakarma or Shat Kriya and Panchakarma. All these things are all about cleansing, because inside there is a disharmony and we have to cleanse that so that the body comes back to its harmony, has been the focus. That is not the focus even today of modern medicine. It's all about what is wrong with you, come back and here is something to fix you. That's all. So, and there is still this fighting of disease, right? Everything is external. Like say an acne happens, there is a rash, we have to give you steroids to fix it. Okay, is that why is the rash happening in the first place? Skin is the final manifestation of all the disorders, right? That is the worst manifestation, and it's been treated by simply giving steroids. That is just simply at the outset. We are not totally criticizing any one or the other. We are comparing and contrasting. Now coming to some of the important concepts. One thing we did not cover in the previous slides, and we used to have it, but we somehow have not been covering too much on that, is vasana. Somebody said, we already talked about this, right? We don't want to react to situations. We do not want to react. We all understand. We heard it so many times that this is not, Christ showed the second cheek, and when somebody hits you on one cheek, don't immediately, hit on the other cheek, but then we can't help it. somebody hit, we hit back, and then both of us regretted, or he regretted, eye for an eye, whatever. That's our helpless situation. Why? Why are we helplessly reacting like this? Because of vasana. What is vasana? It's basically an impression on the mind that is responsible for the way in which we react. Some deep, if we want to use the modern terms, then it is the pathway, the neural pathway that is established inside, right? And it's sitting there. And when somebody does this, my anger goes I'm programmed that way, right? That's how it is. And that's what yogic psychology says, vasana. And modern psychology may say there is a neural pathway that way set in a very neurological way. Maybe the psychology comes, that this is biology. But in psychology, there are other terms used. So we'll go there, and Lata, anytime you can pitch in. Desire for coffee is a vasana in the mind initially, right? And desire, vasana, it's a storehouse of these desires, which make us act in a certain way. Every day I get up and go straight to the kitchen, I put my coffee pot and whatnot, and that's because there is that vasana sitting there. And some vasanas can also now start percolating into genetic system. Now that I have a vasana for these things, I send these same impressions to my child, who has a tendency, may not necessarily be coffee, right, for the child, but can be something else which still the child is now programmed to or has been vulnerable towards, because this vasana has been sent down. Again, genetic imprint won't be like, okay, coffee only. In some cases, yes, like for example, some of the drugs that the mother might be taking, the child would, as soon as the child is born, they start giving those drugs, otherwise the child is not going to do well. So yes, that vasana will go down. So a simple episode of I like coffee goes into the vasana level, I need coffee, and then goes into samskara, where the child has tendency for some addiction. This is how it is seen. So when now at yoga therapy, when we work on this vasana, it's called samanya vyadhi. Vyadhi is the disease. Disease is defined beautifully. Adhija vyadhi and anadhija vyadhi. Adhija is some internal cause. Anadhija is externally caused disease. So adhija vyadhi is all caused by this storehouse of vasanas. And in that there are two levels. Samanya adhija vyadhi and Sara adhija vyadhi. Samanya and Sara. This is Yoga Vasishta saying. So Samanya vyadhi is about dealing with this vasana level. And then Sara is dealing with this. So when somebody says my child has asthma, what has my child caused? We always say, hey, for everything stress is the cause. Oh really? My 2-year-old child has stress? He has got asthma. What happened there? The answer is yes, stress is still the cause. Why? Because of this. And the child has got it, it's still stress caused.
So genetic, via the stress
Genetic
in the
stress.
parent.
Yeah, we send it down. Correct. Now epigenetics is talking about that. Anyway, I want to brush through next 3 slides before we give the baton to Savita. Yogic vasana versus unconscious mind. Sigmund Freud brought a groundbreaking concept called unconscious mind. Don't take it as the same as, the terms may be different, but we are trying to draw a parallel, okay? Because the thinking has been quite different. You have to bring them together and sort of try to understand from the Eastern lens. We are trying to understand Western psychology from Eastern lens. Okay, so there is not going to be an exact easy way to do that. Okay, but for the most part, this book has done it. Very beautiful job. So this unconscious mind is mainly the vasana that we are talking about. No, in a crude way he has brought it. It's very crude. That's fine. But still, even this much of thinking was not there. So that's why he becomes the father of psychology, and we should give it to him, because it's very easy for us to talk like this because we now know it. But for when nobody knew anything and he thinking of this is already quite groundbreaking. for the West at least. So although his hypothesis about this whole sex and sexual desires and being the cause of everything, phallic stage, this stage and whatnot, anal stage and all, don't worry about it. It may seem quite outrageous to us, but actually there is sense in it. Even if you start going, they even map it to chakras in this book. The anal stage, phallic stage, all of that have been mapped to chakras, which is so beautiful. We accept that. So why are we feeling gross about this anal stage, phallic stage, and whatnot, right? Very nicely done book. So and it makes sense too. It's not like we take some random concepts and simply put them together and then say, yeah, it makes sense. No, a very genuine attempt has been made by a psychiatrist and a psychologist who have also studied Eastern psychology with Swami Rama very deeply, and they have been with him, done a lot of sadhana, and that sadhana can be seen in their words and in their concept explanations as well. So we have to give it to them. They have studied both of the systems very, very deeply. So that's why I like the book.
Can you send the name of the book and the author?
I'll send the information. I have to finish in 1 more minute. So these are we will continue to do these parallels, draw these parallels between the Western and Eastern psychology, and just to brush along, just brushing along. The classic conditioning, you all might have heard of Pavlov's dog, where they bring some bell and the food along with that, and the dog salivates, and then slowly the food is gone, but the bell rings, and whenever the bell rings, the dog salivates. So it's a behavior that is not natural otherwise, is trained, right? Pavlov's dog. So non-neutral, unconditional stimulus such as food causing this unconditioned response, which is salivation. We say it's unconditioned response because nobody conditions them, but actually we do. Everything that we see here is a conditioning in some sense, but then what is meant is a newborn going and suckling. Who has conditioned it? I mean, evolutionarily, yes, but not in a see, the psychology deals with
Different levels.
Only the level of human mind functioning. So that's why as yogis we have to also understand psychology and its parameters, and then we use the word conditioning every time, right? Thinking that conditioning means genetic conditioning. Every conditioning for us, evolutionary conditioning for us also is conditioning. Whereas when psychology uses these terms, you have to understand that they are sticking to the parameter where they are talking about the present human behavior and how it is influenced. So that's why it becomes very difficult for us to study psychology, by the way, Lata. Yeah, because we are like, wait, isn't that conditioning also? That somebody has conditioned evolutionarily. When the food comes, the saliva happens, and that is a biological conditioning through many millions of years. But no, that's not what psychology talks. It's about how do you study the behavior of the humans or animals in a given situation. So conditioned response is when the bell comes. That's not a regular conditioning. That's then comes the other conditioning, which is the operant conditioning or instrumental conditioning, where the rat even learns to press the lever because it now knows when I press the lever, the food comes, pellets, they drop. To that extent, the conditioning is possible, right? These are higher level conditioning, higher levels of functioning is evolved due to such operant conditioning. These study of this behavior is where psychology is. That is, there are 2 levels, one is body and the other is mind. That's where it stops. Whereas that is body influences mind, mind influences body. When that was not earlier known, at least now they are beginning to accept that. Mind thinks and the body acts. That to that extent we are okay with that. But there is an observer to the mind. That part is where psychology, although now it is beginning to see that, but that's not, still even now, that realm they are scared to go. There is an observer to the mind. They accept that there is such a thing, but they don't see that as a realm to explore or explorable. They don't think it's explorable. Whereas yoga psychology talks about that study of inner self has nothing to do with this external behavior. That's why I said this operant conditioning, all this conditioning for us is no different from the conditioning that the dog has when it sees the food, it salivates. For us, it's a continuum. Meaning for us and them is again the word that is scary to use, but you understand in general what I mean. So the part of ourselves which observes thought, which also can be the part of ourselves that controls and regulates these thoughts. This is the study focus of yoga psychology. And there are a number of levels, like what just we said, we talked about 5 levels, somebody said 6 levels, like Shankaracharya said, what is this? Even Anandamaya Kosha is a kosha, so there has to be something beyond that. And then there is 7 levels and so forth. It's simply in the eyes of beholder. You can take that whole blob and dissect into any number of levels you want to do that, right? At the deeper levels of observation, one can touch many higher levels of states of consciousness in the journey, and that is simply mysterious to the Western world, psychology. And with that, I will stop here. And Savita? Yeah. No, you go ahead and talk about the second. Okay, all right then. Then I pretty much, I'm done with this for the most part. I don't know what's happening. So the yoga therapy, as per Swami Rama's book, is a complete system of therapy which includes developing awareness, control of physical body, emotions, intellect, and interpersonal relationship. So that's focus there. I'll send the book and title and everything. I bought a Kindle version. Ashwini? Connection. Yeah, is it 5G?